Subcommittee will now come to order. I'm pleased to welcome you today to the hearing before the Subcommittee on Crime, Terrorism, and Homeland Security on H.R. 4175, the Privacy and Cybercrime Enforcement Act of 2007. I'd like to thank the chairman of the full committee, Mr. Conyers, for introducing the bill with bipartisan support. The bill was introduced at the time by the chairman and ranking member of the committee and the subcommittee. And I'm pleased to have been working with Mr. Conyers in drafting it to provide effective tools for federal prosecutors and state and local law enforcement agencies to combat identity theft and other cyber crimes. The Act takes several important steps to protect American consumers from the dangers of identity theft. First, our bill provides for the victims of identity theft, provides them with the ability to seek restitution in federal court for the loss of time and money spent restoring their credit. Under current law, restitution to victims is only available to recover the direct financial costs of identity theft offenses, such as recovering funds from unauthorized credit card charges. But many identity theft victims incur other indirect costs, such as loss of wages due to time taken off from work to resolve credit disputes. Our bill amends the present law to make it clear that restitution orders may include an amount equal to the value of the victim's time spent addressing the actual or intended harm of the identity theft. Second, the bill addresses urgent needs for agencies and companies to provide appropriate notification when they experience major breaches. The problems of data breaches remain a persistent and dangerous threat to Americans' privacy. For example, in 2006, there was a disclosure that a company had suffered a major computer breach involving up to 45 million credit and debit card records. While the company knew about the breach, none of its customers were told about it until a month later. And we're all aware of the identity theft from 26 million of our veterans and active duty personnel from the Department of Veterans Affairs last year. Although up to 39 states have laws pertaining to data breaches, there is no federal standard or regulation to provide notice. Our bill will require rapid notice of breaches to the FBI and Secret Service, and this notice is critical to the successful investigation and prosecution of any criminal activity associated with the breach. The FBI and Secret Service would then publish the list of reported breaches in the Federal Register so that the public will be aware of where and to what extent major data breaches are occurring. Finally, the bill makes it a crime punishable by up to 5 years in prison for knowingly to fail to report major breaches to the appropriate authorities. Lastly, this bill provides such much-needed tools to federal and state law enforcement agents. The bill adds Section 1030 to the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. Adds Section 1030, the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, to the RICO statute, which will provide the Department of Justice with a much-needed tool to investigate and prosecute organized crime syndicates which use sophisticated cyber schemes to commit criminal acts. The bill also authorizes $25 million for each of the fiscal years from 2008 to 2010 to establish state grant programs for the enforcement of cyber crimes. State and local law enforcement resources need to be strengthened to attack the low-lying identity theft that federal prosecutors fail to go after. We heard in the last Congress at a subcommittee hearing about the incident involving Senator Domenici, where some $800 in merchandise was charged to a stolen credit card. We found that the crime was not being prosecuted. So the thieves are left with the knowledge that if they don't steal too much, they can do so with impunity. The credit card company will cancel the debt, write off the loss, and there will be no criminal investigation. And so the thieves can keep their bounty of their crimes without worrying about prosecution. I believe that the Secret Service, working in partnership with state law enforcement, could quickly reverse this expectation that thieves have in this front. H.R. 4175 is a comprehensive bill. It not only deals with the need to provide law enforcement notice to law enforcement when innocent consumers have their data breached. It also deals with the underlying problems of lack of accountability to deter crimes from occurring in the first place. Our privacy and cyber crimes lag behind both capabilities of our technology and the sophistication of identity thieves, and this legislation will close that gap. It's now my pleasure to recognize our new ranking member of the subcommittee, the gentleman from Texas, Judge Gomer.
Thank you, Chairman Scott, and thank you to the witnesses. I stayed till 1:30 when it was apparent we weren't going to be a while, and I ran over to Capitol. But because the hour is so much later, I have an opening statement, but I would ask unanimous consent simply to submit it for the record. Unless y'all want me to read my opening statement, I will. But otherwise, we'll submit that. Let me just give the last three sentences. H.R. 4175 was introduced by Chairman Conyers, Ranking Member Smith, Subcommittee Chairman Scott, and then Ranking Member Forbes. The bipartisan proposal, I think, represents a good first step in tackling the difficult problem of identity theft and cybercrime. And so I will look forward to hearing from the witnesses and working with my colleagues on this important piece of legislation. And with that, I guess hearing no objection.
Without objection, the statement is entered into the record.
Thank you, as we want to hear from you.
Gentleman from Michigan, Chairman of the full committee.
Thank you, and as the one that's guilty for holding you up so long, I will not give you my statement and put it in the record and add that the Privacy and Cybercrime Enforcement Act is a strong bipartisan measure that I believe will help combat the growing threat of identity theft and other cyber crimes. This balance bill protects the privacy rights of consumers, the interests of businesses, and the legitimate needs of law enforcement. And I would like to emphasize that I look forward to the passage of cybercrime law, but not at the expense of the substantive issues involved, including requiring much-needed notices for security breaches. I'm aware that the passage of S-2168 in the Senate, but our bill is more comprehensive, and we need to examine it before making hasty decisions that impact consumers for years to come. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for your patience and forbearance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentleman from North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In view of the belated hour, I'll waive my opening statement. I join you and the ranking member in extending a welcome to our distinguished panel.
Thank you. And without objection, other members will have the opportunity to include opening statements in the record at this point. And I want to thank the witnesses for your patience. Sometimes because of votes, the schedule just goes awry, and we appreciate your patience in remaining with us. We have a distinguished panel of witnesses here today to help us consider important issues that are before us. The first witness is Andrew Laurie, who is the Acting Principal Deputy Assistant Attorney General and Chief of Staff for the Criminal Division at the Department of Justice. He is currently serving a detail from the U.S. Attorney's Office from the Southern District of Florida, where for the past 5 years he served as Managing Assistant U.S. Attorney in the West Palm Beach office. He served 2 prior details at the department, both as Chief of the Public Integrity Section. The next witness is Craig Maga, Special Agent in charge of the Criminal Investigative Division of the United States Secret Service. He provides guidance in determining the investigative focus of the division, which provides direction to all Secret Service field offices. He is a 20-year veteran of the Secret Service, native of Columbus, Ohio. He received his Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of Maryland and a master's degree in the field of management from Johns Hopkins University. Next will be Joel Winston, the Associate Director of the Division of Privacy and Identity Protection at the Federal Trade Commission's Bureau of Consumer Protection. That division has a responsibility over consumer privacy and data security issues, identity theft, and credit reporting matters. Mr. Winston is currently serving on the federal government's Identity Theft Task Force, which was created by the President in March 2006. Mr. Winston received his undergraduate and law degrees from the University of Michigan. Next will be Jamie Knapp, Executive Director of the Identity Theft Action Council of Nebraska. He founded the council in 2006. She founded the council in 2006 to use her journey as an identity theft victim to help others. The council is the first nonprofit organization dedicated solely to identity theft issues, assisting victims in Nebraska. She received her Bachelor of Journalism from the University of Nebraska at Lincoln. Next will be Robert Hollyman, President and CEO of the Business Software Alliance. Mr. Hollyman has headed the Alliance since 1990, overseeing operations in more than 85 countries. He is widely known for his work on policy-related issues affecting the technology industry, including intellectual property laws, cybersecurity, international trade, and electronic commerce. He earned his Bachelor of Arts degree in Political Science at Trinity University in Texas and his Juris Doctorate from Louisiana State University Law Center in Baton Rouge. Finally, we have Lily Coney, Associate Director of the Electronic Privacy Information Center in Washington, D.C. She serves as a coordinator for the Privacy Coalition. The Privacy Coalition has over 40 organizations and affiliates who share a commitment of freedom and privacy rights. She has testified before the Department of Homeland Security, Security's Data Privacy and Integrity Advisory Committee on Domestic Surveillance. Now, each of our witnesses' written statements will be made part of the record in all of those statements in their entirety. I would ask that each witness summarize his or her testimony in 5 minutes or less. And to help you stay within that time, there's a timing device on your table that will start green, go to yellow when you have 1 minute left, and then finally to red when your time has expired. We'll begin with, and unfortunately we're expecting a vote any minute now, so we'll go as far as we can, break for a vote, and then come right back. Mr. Laurie.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Scott, Ranking Member Gomert, and members of the subcommittee. It is a pleasure to appear before you today to testify about the Department of Justice's commitment to combating computer crime and identity theft, and about the important legislation this subcommittee is considering to address these threats. As information technology increasingly pervades every aspect of our society, the opportunities for criminals to take advantage of it have also increased. One result has been the rise of identity theft. The Department of Justice is dedicated to aggressively pursuing all forms of cybercrime and identity theft. However, shortcomings in existing law have, at times, inhibited its ability to do so. The Privacy and Cybercrime Act of 2007 would address several of these shortcomings and provide important tools to promote law enforcement's efforts. The Act includes many provisions also recommended in the strategic plan released earlier this year by the President's Identity Theft Task Force. The Department is pleased to see the depth of the common ground that we share on these key issues. In particular, the Department applauds the amendments in the Act that would ensure that victims receive fair restitution for the time spent to remediate the harm resulting from identity theft offenses. Similarly, the Department supports the provisions of the Act that enhance our ability to prosecute the theft of sensitive information from computers, close loopholes in the cyber extortion statute, and enable us to bring computer crime charges against criminal conspiracies and organized criminal groups. In addition to these many positive aspects, the Department would like to provide some suggestions that would strengthen the bill. First, we strongly encourage the committee to consider amending 18 U.S.C. Section 1030A5 to close a loophole and appropriately penalize the use of malicious spyware, botnets, and keyloggers. Current law criminalizes actions that cause damage to computers by impairing the integrity or availability of data or computer systems. Absent special circumstances, however, the conduct must cause loss exceeding $5,000 to constitute a federal crime. Many identity thieves obtain personal information by installing malicious software on numerous individual computers. Whether or not the programs succeed in stealing information, they harm the integrity of the computer and data. However, it is often difficult or impossible to measure the loss to each computer owner or to prove that the many small losses together exceed $5,000. Two amendments could remedy this situation. First, Congress could amend Section 1030A5 to make it a misdemeanor offense to damage a protected computer and cause less than $5,000 in loss. Whether or not the committee considers that amendment, we strongly recommend adding a provision to the Act that would make it a federal felony to damage 10 or more protected computers, regardless of loss. Let me turn now to Section 102 of the bill, the provision that requires victims of major security breaches to provide notice to law enforcement. The bill defines major security breach as a breach that involves the means of identification pertaining to 10,000 or more individuals. This threshold is too high. To give the number some context, the theft of as few as 1,000 credit card numbers is, under the current sentencing guidelines, presumed to involve a minimum loss of $500,000. We therefore recommend that the threshold for a major security breach be reduced. The definition should also be amended to include any breach where there may be a threat to national security or risk of significant monetary loss, without regard to the number of records affected. I would also like to mention Section 106, which contains a useful provision on the forfeiture of the instrumentalities and proceeds of cybercrime. We support the addition of a forfeiture provision. We suggest, however, that the Act explicitly allow for both civil and criminal forfeiture and spell out the appropriate procedures. Language to accomplish these changes and other technical suggestions to improve the forfeiture procedures is included with the written testimony I've submitted to the subcommittee. In conclusion, the Department would like to emphasize that law enforcement can continue to fulfill its role in addressing the growing threat of computer crime and identity theft if we have the proper laws and appropriate resources. The Privacy and Cybercrime Act of 2007 addresses many of those needs by closing loopholes in existing cybercrime statutes, improving our ability to prosecute criminal groups, and providing much-needed resources. We believe the Act will be an important tool in the fight against cybercrime. Mr. Chairman, this concludes my remarks. I would be pleased to answer questions from you and other members of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Laurie. Mr. Maga.
Good afternoon, Chairman Scott and distinguished members of the subcommittee. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to address the subcommittee on a subject of identity crime and the role the Secret Service is in investigations. While the Secret Service is perhaps the best known for protecting our nation's leaders, we also investigate a wide array of financial crimes and work to safeguard our nation's critical financial infrastructure. With the passage of legislation in 1984 and 1986, the Secret Service was authorized to investigate access device fraud, and we were given parallel authority with other law enforcement agencies in identity crimes and computer fraud cases. Through our financial and electronic crime investigations, the Secret Service has developed particular expertise in the area of identity theft, false identification fraud, access device fraud, bank fraud, and computer fraud. In fiscal year 2007, agents of the Secret Service arrested over 4,300 suspects for identity theft crimes. These suspects were responsible for approximately $690 million in actual fraud loss to American consumers and financial institutions. The Secret Service has observed a marked increase in identity theft and cybercrime. Criminals continue to seek new methods to compromise victims' personal and financial information. The recent trend observed by law enforcement is the use of computer and the internet to launch cyber attacks targeting citizens and financial institutions. Cyber criminals have become proficient at stealing victims' personal information through the use of phishing emails, account takeovers, malicious software, hacking attack, and network intrusions resulting in data breach. This stolen information is often sold in bulk quantities through illicit websites on the internet. Criminal groups involved in identity theft and cybercrimes routinely operate in a multi-jurisdictional environment. By working closely with federal, state, and local law enforcement representatives, as well as international police agencies, we are able to provide a comprehensive network of intelligence sharing, resource sharing, and technical expertise that bridge jurisdictional boundaries. This partnership approach to law enforcement is vital to our criminal investigative mission. The Secret Service has established a national network of financial crimes task forces and electronic crime task forces in cities across the United States. These task forces leverage the combined resources of local, state, and federal law enforcement partners, as well as technical experts from the academic community and private industry, in an organized effort to combat threats to our financial payment system and critical infrastructure. Collaboration between law enforcement and private sector is critical to our preventative approach to identity theft and cybercrime. We also build partners with the academic community to ensure that law enforcement is on the cutting edge of technology by leveraging research and development capabilities of teaching institutions and technical colleges. The Secret Service appreciates the subcommittee's work to enhance the penalties and broaden investigative jurisdiction associated with identity theft and cybercrime. H.R. 4175 addresses many of the issues I have discussed today concerning these offenses. H.R. 4175 expands the definition of cybercrime, requires data brokers to notify law enforcement authorities of major security breaches, and increases penalties for identity theft and other violations of data privacy and security. The Secret Service looks forward to working closely with Congress as they address identity crime legislation. As I've highlighted in my written statement, the Secret Service has implemented a number of initiatives pertaining to identity crimes. We have dedicated enormous resources to increase public awareness, provide training to law enforcement partners, and improve investigative techniques. We will continue to aggressively investigate identity theft offenders to protect consumers. The Secret Service is committed to our mission to safeguard the nation's critical financial infrastructure. Chairman Scott, this concludes my prepared remarks. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify on behalf of the Secret Service.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Winston.
Thank you, Chairman Scott, Ranking Member Gohmert, and members of the subcommittee. I appreciate the opportunity to testify today about these critical issues of privacy and identity theft. As the Federal Trade Commission's recently issued national survey shows, identity theft continues to afflict millions of Americans every year, with losses in the billions of dollars. But beyond these real and substantial direct costs, this crime harms our economic system by threatening consumer confidence. Many polls show that the level of consumer anxiety about identity theft is extremely high. The FTC plays a lead role in the battle against identity theft through its law enforcement efforts, its work on the President's task force, its extensive consumer and business education, and its assistance to criminal law enforcement partners. One way to stop identity theft is to keep sensitive information out of the hands of thieves by ensuring that businesses protect the information they collect. Reports of the latest data breaches appear almost daily and continue to shake consumer confidence. Of course, not all data breaches lead to identity theft, but some do, causing real damage to affected consumers. The Commission uses its authority under several federal laws to take action against businesses that fail to reasonably protect sensitive consumer information. Since 2001, the FTC has brought 15 data security cases, including our most recent case announced this morning against a mortgage company that threw sensitive consumer loan files into publicly accessible dumpsters. In addition to its enforcement efforts, the Commission has played a lead role in the President's Identity Theft Task Force. The Task Force strategic plan recommended 31 initiatives to reduce the incidence and impact of identity theft. The recommendations focus on, first, prevention, making it more difficult for criminals to steal data or to misuse data they do manage to steal. Second, victim assistance, helping consumers recover from identity theft. And third, deterrence, strengthening the tools that we have to catch and punish the criminals. Most of these 31 recommendations have been or are in the process of being implemented. With respect to prevention, the FTC has developed and distributed highly successful business and consumer guidance on data security. Our materials include a very popular data security guide for businesses, which now comes with an online tutorial. And the Commission staff will be holding a series of regional data security seminars across the country beginning next year. On the consumer side, the Commission launched last year a multimedia campaign titled Deter, Detect, Defend. Here's a copy of the package. It includes brochures and training kits. And the Commission sponsors a multimedia website, On Guard Online, which has information for consumers on basic computer security. Since its launch, this website has attracted over 4.3 million visits. Despite our best efforts to improve data security, however, there's no foolproof way to stop all data theft. For that reason, it is critical that we do whatever we can to make the data less useful for thieves. As recommended by the task force, the Commission conducted 2 public workshops this year relating to the issue of consumer authentication. By creating better ways to verify consumers' identities when they open new accounts or when they access existing accounts, we can make it more difficult for criminals to use stolen data. Regulations recently issued by the FTC and the federal bank regulatory agencies under the FACT Act provide another tool in the battle to prevent identity theft. These rules require all businesses that hold consumer accounts to establish an identity theft prevention program. With regard to victim assistance, the Commission has continued its role as the central repository for identity theft information. Between 15,000 and 20,000 consumers contact us each week for information on how to guard against identity theft or to obtain help in recovering from it. Consumers who contact us receive step-by-step advice. At the same time, the information these consumers give us is entered into our clearinghouse and is made available to over 1,700 law enforcement agencies for use in law enforcement. We are also partnering with other agencies to provide training for local law enforcement across the country. And we have developed and posted a universal police report that identity theft victims can complete online, print, and take to law enforcement for verification. With this report, victims have access to a number of rights, including the right to place a 7-year fraud alert on their file. To summarize, identity theft is one of the most important consumer protection issues of our time and must be attacked from every angle. The Commission will continue to place a high priority on preventing this crime and helping victims to recover. We look forward to continuing our work with Congress in this effort. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Ms. Knapp, we have about 10 minutes before we have to be on the floor, so we'll take your testimony and then we'll come back as soon as we can. Ms. Knapp.
Thank you, Chairman Scott and members of the subcommittee. Thank you for this opportunity to share my story today and for your leadership and interest in this issue. My name is Jamie Knapp, and I'm the Executive Director of the Identity Theft Action Council of Nebraska, a proud mother of a 7-year-old, and I'm also an identity theft victim. Today I will speak about my own personal experience and offer support for the Privacy and Cybercrime Enforcement Act of 2007, but also will provide some additional suggestions on what can be done. I have regrets in my life, and one of them was taking a particular part-time job and handing over my Social Security number to my employer. In May 2005, my personal information, including my name, birth date, and Social Security number, were stolen and used to apply for 4 credit cards. The perpetrator turned out to be a manager at my former employer who stole my information from employee records. She was arrested in October 2005 and charged with criminal impersonation, a felony, for stealing my identity. She served 5 months in county jail only because she couldn't make bail. And then she was ordered to undergo drug treatment for methamphetamine addiction. My perpetrator pleaded guilty on the felony charge in October 2007 and was ordered to drug court, which is a program for nonviolent offenders with substance abuse problems. At drug court graduation in January 2008, a total of 4 felonies will be wiped clean from her criminal record like they never existed after only a 1.5 years of drug treatment. I've lost more than a 9-digit number from a piece of paper. This number happens to be the key to my financial past, present, and future, even though no one assigns monetary value to a Social Security number. When I became a victim of identity theft, I was not prepared for the overwhelming feeling of helplessness. And I was stunned at how quickly destruction came and how easy it was for my perpetrator to open up credit cards. What I experienced was a deep sense of loss, including the sense of who I am, my entire core belief system, friends who didn't understand what I was going through, and a sense of safety. The worry and uncertainty caused me to change my physical appearance and intensely watch for strange people or cars following me. In April 2006, the trauma started to affect my professional life while working for a different employer. Because the original theft happened in the workplace, I started to become very uncomfortable and wasn't able to function at a normal level with my coworkers, nor did I feel like I could trust management or my employer. Shortly thereafter, the stress became too much to hide or control. It started showing itself physically through my inability to sleep and increased paranoia, cloudy vision, and forgetfulness. In May 2006, I sought counseling and was officially diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm not a victim of a violent physical crime, but I certainly feel like someone who is. My reality is that I will never be in total control over how or when my Social Security number will be used for the rest of my life. I must always have my guard up. My story does not end with heartache, it actually ends with hope. I had a choice to make. I could either forget, let this crime ruin my life, or create change. And the choice was easy. I founded a nonprofit organization in 2006 called the Identity Theft Action Council of Nebraska. And we educate consumers about identity theft and provide victim resources. I support tougher penalties and greater victim restitution included in this bill, but would also like to offer a few suggestions. Criminal penalties and tools for law enforcement is only part of the solution. To more fully address the problem, Congress should require mandatory notification when sensitive personal information is breached and require mandatory data security requirements for business and government. And also provide consumers with affordable, easy-to-use security freeze rights. This is the first time I've spoken publicly about the depth of my pain with this crime, and I thank you for this opportunity. But my story only represents one person out of the millions of Americans who become victims each year. I'd like to thank you again for this opportunity, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Knapp, for your very moving testimony. We will vote. There are 3 votes pending, and we'll be back as soon as we can. It'll probably be about 15 minutes.